Hello everyone, and I'm happy to welcome you to today's online discussion dedicated to the mechanisms and impact of Russian disinformation in the German-speaking region. Thank you for joining us, and it's great to see such interest in this important and timely topic. My name is Kateryna Nedashkivska. I'm the author and manager of the think tank's Essentials magazine and the international charity fund U-Donation, as well as part of the Eastern Europe Youth Empowerment Space project. These both initiatives focus on analytical work, policy discussions, and strengthening resilience in Eastern Europe. And I warmly encourage you to follow our work. Today's meeting is organized in collaboration with the Chat, a Telegram channel that is dedicated to Germany and the broader German-speaking region. And if this topic resonates with you, you may also find very relevant and insightful content there. Our goal today is to look at Russian disinformation through particular mechanisms, actors, narratives, and national context, and to better understand how democratic societies can respond. For today's discussion, we are very pleased to welcome an outstanding expert. Our speaker is Dietmar Pichler, a disinformation and subversion analyst, strategic communication consultant, founder of the Disinformation Resilience Network, and editor at InPath. Mr. Pichler, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I would like to give you the floor to briefly introduce yourself and your work.
So first of all, thanks for having me. A brief introduction of myself. I mean, you said it perfect, actually. I work especially about foreign interference, and the focus of my work is Russian interference in the Western world, but not only Russia, but also Russia and its allies, so the international allies when we speak about countries, but also about agents on the ground that support the Russian propaganda. So this is a main field of my work when we speak about the people engaging with all these Russian propaganda narratives, bringing it to the universities, bringing it to mainstream media. So there is a lot to do, as you can imagine.
Okay, thank you very much. And I will structure our discussion into several blocks, moving from the general picture to specific instruments, political context, Ukraine, and finally the response of democratic states. And after that, we will open the floor for questions from the audience. So to begin this, I would like to start with a broader perspective to help us understand the overall landscape. And my first question is, how would you assess the threat posed by Russian disinformation in German-speaking countries today?
It's a very big threat, and it's a very old threat. Sometimes I prefer to call it Moscow influence, because it started during the Soviet Union, at least. I mean, there was very bad Russian Empire propaganda as well, but we now are affected by the West. And in the German-speaking world, they were highly influenced by a program called Active Measures, or Aktivные мероприятия. And this program was influenced to support the so-called peace movement, to support communist, Marxist, Leninist groups in the West, and especially in Germany. And this is very relevant because the Kremlin right now, they are using the same strategies, same narratives, but they are also using the same people. So we have these people, and the difference is they were like your age in 1982, or they were like young people, young students or something like that. And now they are older, but they still have the same the same worldview. These people who got so highly influenced by the Soviet propaganda. So this is the situation that we have, especially in Germany, a little bit also in Austria, and a little bit less in Switzerland. But we know that these influence campaigns, they happened everywhere. So this is the basis what we have. Then we have also a kind of a guilt because of World War II. And the people, they don't distinguish between Russia and the Soviet Union, so they think they owe Moscow something. Now Moscow is allowed to do something more than others, which is also completely stupid regarding all the people that the Moscow regime is suppressing, not only in its own country, like the borders are now, but also when we speak about the Ukrainians, of course, and the Georgians and Moldovans and the Baltic states. So this is something we have zero awareness about. And if you compare Germany to other countries of the European Union, you will see it's the biggest economic power and also very influential political power. So there is a lot of focus in subverting the political stability in Germany. And this is quite dangerous. And for Switzerland and for Austria, we are a kind of collateral damage, because if you attack a country in a particular language sphere very strongly, we know internet and even television, we watch the same TV, we have the same programs, we even have the same radio. I mean, radio is quite irrelevant today, but especially online, there is no distinction. So because Germany is a main target, Switzerland and especially Austria are affected very much as well.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for the answer for this question. And I wonder which structural differences between these countries that you've mentioned have the greatest impact on the effectiveness of disinformation.
The big difference between the countries is, I mean, Germany is not a neutral country. Germany is a NATO country, and Austria and Switzerland, I will start with Switzerland. Switzerland is not member of the European Union, so theoretically they are could be completely neutral. But of course, it's a democratic country, so they support sanctions against Russia to a certain extent, and they also condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So there is no neutrality about that. And when we speak of Austria as a member of the European Union, of course, there is no political neutrality. And what many people don't understand about our history, also before we were a member of the EU, and during the Cold War, there was also no political neutrality. We were part of the democratic West. But people here, they don't realize it in many cases. They try to exploit neutrality for a kind of pro-Russian view. So we don't see the difference between victim and aggressor. What we don't have in Switzerland and in Germany is we don't have the past of the GDR, of the communist East German, this heritage, this unfortunate, we don't have it. They have still networks between former KGB agents and Stasi agents, and there is a lot of real Marxist-Leninist, maybe it's just authoritarian propaganda, and they have also a lot of far-right people there. We have the far right in Austria. We have a little bit of the far right, also a little bit less, at least in Switzerland. But in Germany, we have a mix between this Stasi past, GDR past, far right past. There are a lot of things you can use and exploit to make a country vulnerable for your propaganda narratives. And of course, there is the story about Nord Stream. Of course, there is the story about gas dependence. And there was a lot of lobbying for decades to make us believe that the Russians are the good guys. And we have, in all these countries, we have a lot of anti-Americanism. It's not a popular topic to speak about anti-Americanism now because we have Donald Trump. But you remember what happened during the Biden administration when people blamed the United States instead of the Russian Federation. So there are a lot of dynamics and a lot of specifics we have in these countries. On the other hand, everything that you have, for instance, in France or in Italy, all these narratives, NATO expansion is to blame, we have here as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And how easily do Russian narratives flow between countries through a common language, media, and social networks?
I can give you one example that I see a lot of times that worries me a lot. So I don't want to speak about what's going on social media because we are all well aware. It's in TikTok, it's in Instagram, you have reels, you have travel influencers, you have I don't want to speak about X, about all these pro-Russian troll accounts, and unfortunately also real people trolling in a pro-Russian way or spreading their conspiracy theories, propaganda, disinformation, whatever you want to call it. But then we have something else, and this is, I think, very worrying in the German-speaking world. We have a lot of, let's say, pro-Russian or subtle pro-Russian actors, experts. Sometimes even they call themselves journalists or authors. We have them on TV. On main interviewed, and then what happens is there are recordings, small snippets, small video clips of their appearances. Of course, you don't hear the other side. You don't hear somebody saying, hey, come on, your narrative is not true. What you're telling is it's a bunch of bullshit. You don't have this on these clips, only the statement of the pro-Russian actor. And then they put it online. And we have, for instance, one philosopher, a German philosopher, who said in 2014 that, yeah, of course, Russia will react when we expand NATO. So this old narrative that is always used to excuse the Russian aggression. And this video I can see almost every week. It was 2014 in TV. Nobody would care about it anymore. But in social media, you see it once and once again. They use it and they post it, and the TV stations, they don't do anything about it. And we have the same people who in our bookstores, we have them in our universities. So the German-speaking world is very, very much infiltrated by pro-Russian actors. And I'm not speaking about real Russian people. I'm speaking about Westerners who sing the tune of Moscow. And the problem is when we speak about disinformation, when we speak about foreign interference, it's just solely an online issue. Also, when you take a look at what the European Union does with the Democracy Shield and all the initiatives, FIMI, I like their terms. I like that they see that there is a problem. They do a lot of nice work, but they are not brave enough to name the elephant in the room, that we have a couple of agents of influence that are spreading the word of Moscow, and we have them in our societies, and we have them in our universities, and we have them in our TV, not only on social media. But it's so much easier to point and say, oh, there is an anonymous troll, oh, it's a Moscow troll. But if the same narrative comes from a professor from a university, we say, yeah, I cannot criticize it because it's freedom of speech. Of course, he can say whatever he wants, but we should name and shame them, and we should expose what is going on. And we also need to speak about who is paid by Russia, because there are a lot of things going on. We had one case in Germany where a so-called journalist and book author who was very close to Putin, he was well known for his Russia-friendly narratives. And then journalists found out that he received 600,000 euro book sponsoring from a Russian oligarch linked to Putin. So, and you can imagine how many such cases we have, but nobody digs about it. No journalist speaks about it in the German-speaking world. It's terrible. It's just social media and trolls and doppelganger pages. And the people who analyze disinformation, who analyze propaganda, they come usually from the technical sphere, which is great because we have a lot of AI and we have all these technical issues, and I really appreciate them and I love them, and I have a lot of friends who support also my work from that part. But it's not enough. We need the historians, we need the people who understand narratives, we need the people from communication who understand subtle propaganda, who understand how it works, and who also are aware that there is still a world outside of the cyberspace.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, at this point, I just want to thank you for this work, because it seems to me that really it's a huge and a complex problem in the German-speaking space, and not just in the German-speaking space. I think that in Europe, like in general, yeah, and you do this huge work for spreading the information and spreading the right narratives about like this Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation. So Thank you about this for this. And now I think that it's time to move to the particular instruments and operational tools of Russian disinformation in the German-speaking space. I want to ask what are the particular key tools of Russian disinformation that are most actively used in the German-speaking world today?
It's quite difficult because we need first to define what is pro-Russian. So the problem is that when I speak about pro-Russian narratives, then in my opinion, it's also somebody who says I condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and then after you see a lot of reasons why the Russians had to do it, because NATO and the West and Joe Biden and Ukraine and all these things. Yeah, and 2014, they have a very, very long storyline. And the problem is, to answer your question in an accurate way, in my opinion, we have a lot more of pro-Russian actors and narratives than we even realize. Because there are a lot of people, when you tell them this person is pro-Russian, they say, no, he condemned the invasion. And I say, no, he condemned the invasion, but just as a kind of a disclaimer, so he is free to spread all the anti-Western, anti-Ukrainian propaganda that he wants, or she. Yeah? So this is a problem. And if you ask me about so what I do is, what I analyze is the amount of propaganda. It's almost impossible to realize where it comes from because we have so many sources. I mean, the online logistic is quite clear. Yeah, we have a couple of Telegram channels where the usual suspects get their press releases. We have a very, very fast social media information space where the new fakes are spread. But this is not the main thing, because there are a lot of independent actors that work just for themselves. Yeah, so and they don't even need instructions, because it's the new fake is not so important as spreading over and over again. For instance, the very old fake that Euromaidan was paid by $5 billion by the Americans. I can still read it every day. So it's a really very difficult question. And this is also the problem what I have with the approach from the European Union. They see it like there is Russia and here is Europe, and they sending the messages. Of course, this happens when they have a new peace plan, so-called peace plan, or when they have some new things. Then you have TASS and RIA Novosti, and you have all hidden RIA Novosti, and so we have the hidden press agencies. This is something we know from the logistics, that they go and they have all these local actors from the so-called alternative media, and they report it in the complete pro-Russian way. But what worries me more is that the really very toxic ideas of peace and the peace movement, it's very dangerous, even since the Cold War, that it comes in the middle of society, and we have it at the universities, we have it in television, we have it in the bookstores, and we have a lot of events and a lot of people also posting, I don't like war and I don't like Putin, but maybe the Ukrainians need to give up land and all this. So this is something that worries me, to be honest, more than somebody waving a Russian flag and saying, I want Russia to conquer Europe and to free us from all the gays, because this is so ridiculous that everybody understands what it is. But asking about strategy, I think that the Russians, of course, they try to maintain the radicals they have in their country. But usually it's not more than 10, 20%, depending on countries. So people who really think that SAT is something good, or that it's a special military operation, or the biolabs or something like that, this is not very widespread. More the subtle, the peace propaganda, Russia was provoked and encircled by NATO. These are the narratives that really hurt our support for Ukraine, for instance, and also hurt our integrity as the European Union.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So, despite formal bans, Russia today and its affiliated networks continue to operate through mirroring and social media. And to what extent do they remain system-forming players?
I think, to be honest, they were never system-forming players. They were more important in 2014, 2015 than they are now, of course, because the blog has an impact. The blog is disputed. Some people say, yeah, we know it's propaganda, but they can use it against us if we block it. I supported the blog because it was a political signal, and it was a political sanctions against the Russian war of aggression. I mean, the war started in 2014, not in 2022. It's also something we should not forget. And what I see and what I can observe is that RT and Sputnik, they are still here. I mean, they work just differently. Just 10 minutes ago on X, I saw a woman posting a video from RT.de, from the German branch of RT. So what they do is they cut their content, they send their videos, and they rely on a kind of underground logistics. So and they have a lot of mirror pages, and they have some people who use RT articles and they rewrite it via AI. It's very easy, and sometimes it works automatically. So, and the thing about RT is it's not a commercial company. They don't need to get high revenue. They work for the government. They work as a propaganda faction, so they don't care if you use their content. If you are another propagandist and you need content, you can use it. Fair use, fair propaganda use. So it is dangerous. It is a problem. It is, I think, a kind of press agency for all the local actors, but it is. I have a problem when we say we blocked RT and Sputnik, so now it's over with Russian propaganda. And I can tell you that a lot of people in the West were so naive. And I always said, RT, Sputnik, it's just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many layers, and even if we would continue the discussion for 1 week, we would not discuss all the layers of Russian propaganda. And then we didn't even speak about China, who is also supporting the Russian views, about Iran and Venezuela. I mean, just a couple of days after the full-scale invasion, a Russian woman on Instagram sent me a video from the Venezuelan channel Telesur, which is their state channel, their propaganda channel. And this video was in English, and in perfect English, a guy told me that the Ukrainians have biolabs and all this bullshit. So you see how it is very interconnected, and we are not well prepared. We don't fight back. We are not even defending against the information war at the moment. It is really ridiculous what the Western world is doing. Of course, countries like Ukraine or the Baltic states or also Moldova, they do something, they fight back, they are aware, they know that subversion has many, many layers and many actors involved. But what is happening in Austria, I can only say it's ridiculous, and in Germany as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's true. And what role do fake media and clone websites, so-called doppelganger, play in this all?
I think it's a sophisticated technology in some cases. If it's not a fake screenshot, then it's just, I think, if you want my assessment, I think that these sophisticated pages, they play less a role than a fake screenshot, because a fake screenshot is something you can do very fast. You can do it every day. Every day you can put something, and the people, they will not even realize it's fake because they need to reverse search for it, and many people don't do it. And I saw a lot of fakes, and people even blocked me when I told them, hey, you're using a fake, because they come from different angles. On these clone websites, or these websites that are that have the appearance of a real media and they are really programmed, this is very sophisticated. I think the impact is not so high. I think they just try what they can do, but it will maybe change when they have a lot of them, when they have hundreds and thousands of them. And it's like with AI. On the beginning, it was not a big deal. It was ridiculous. Only a few people fell for it, and it was expensive or complicated. And now it's so easy. And I think this is what it's gonna play maybe a bigger role in the future. And it's a matter of months, not years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So, how dangerous are local actors? So you've mentioned some influencers, experts, some politicians, maybe. So how dangerous are these local actors in spreading Russian narratives?
I think they are the most dangerous ones because, for instance, academics. We have academics from the United States, we have academics from Norway, we have academics from Germany, Austria, who appeared on RT. And they are still also invited to mainstream TV. They are still invited to put their books in our bookstores. So if you imagine, if you are a teenager in a European country, then usually, or EU country, you have if you have media literacy classes at school, they tell you the following. They tell you social media is bad, trust real experts, trust professors, trust your teachers, trust books. Books are now the holy grail. When I was a kid, that was not the case. People said, don't believe everything you see on TV, don't believe everything you read in books, or this strange actor wrote another book again. But suddenly, after we understood that social media is very dangerous, which it is, no doubt about that, people think, I mean, I could write, I use this very controversial example every time, I could write a book that the earth is flat, and nobody would dare to criticize me because it's a book. Yeah, books are always the truth now. So sorry. Yeah, I'm really. This is really a problem, and we have a lot of these actors internationally, and we see a pattern. And this pattern we see since the Cold War, and we had these people in the Cold War as well. They were recruited somehow. Not all of them are directly paid. Some, for instance, write for Chinese media or write for RT or they receive some money from RT. Some also have some other connections, they have academic connections. And usually they are former generals, former diplomats, former politicians. And in many, many cases, they are political scientists or international relations scholars or economists. I mean, I remember one guy who is an American economist, and he appears several times on the show of Solovyov. And the West, they don't react. Yeah, I mean, if I go to Solovyov, that says a lot. It's worse than RT. This is the main warmonger in Russian propaganda TV. And we are not aware of it because real people, real academics are somehow, not to criticize, not to expose, and I mean, I was in the United States in 2024. It was during the Biden administration. I also tried, it was an exchange program with the State Department. I tried to raise awareness for this issue. It was very difficult. And later, unfortunately, after I was back, there was a list. The Americans, they have a list from people who got money to spread Russian propaganda. So they received sponsoring for their propaganda activities. The United States still did not make this list public. We have only a few names. And I have a friend who told me, it's a matter of national security because so many people are involved, and it's not only in the US, it's also in Germany. If we would know how many people are paid for what they say in favor of the Kremlin, we would be shocked. But I'm really very in favor of transparency.
Okay, thank you. And now I would like to ask, so graffiti, stickers, and other offline actions have been reported in Austria and Switzerland. And do you see a shift in disinformation from online to real space?
Thank you very much for the question. Actually, a journalist called me last week, and I was very proud because I received these chats that show how these Russian agents work. There were some chats leaked. I received them before they were made public because it was part of the interview. And I could see how these people think. And it was so disgusting. If you saw these Russian agents, they said things like, come on, let's start World War III, or nobody will support Ukraine anymore when we put this. So you don't expect a lot, but they are lower than that. And they are also much less professional. It's not like in the movies where you see a KGB agent completely cold following some instructions they receive from Moscow. No, it's like activists. They really are activists, but bad activists, bad actors. And Yeah, and what they try is they do false flag operations. So they put some far right symbolism connected to Ukraine because they want to show Ukrainians or pro-Ukrainians are Nazis, or they want to provoke. They damage some shops or damage some private property with pro-Ukrainian slogans, so they can shift the position of the society. But what they do then, they make photos of it and then they put it online. And this is the difference to before. I want to give one example. During the Cold War, I think it was the 50s, so after the World War II ended, the Soviet agents, they put swastikas on the walls in Germany to portray Germany as still a Nazi country, because the goal was that France and Germany will not come together again. They will not become friends when people are still afraid of a Nazi Germany. Yeah? And now they do the same, but the impact is much bigger because the Russians, they can amplify it via their Telegram channels. They did it in France, and they are able to split our societies and to create a lot of confusion and destabilization.
Okay, so thank you. And I would like to ask one question from the next block dedicated to neutrality and the political context. And in your opinion, how exactly is the topic of neutrality used by Russia in Austria and Switzerland?
So what we now I will not start with the local actors, something we can really prove, and this is Mr. Medvedev. He wrote an article or a comment on RT, and he was threatening Austria. He said, "You are not neutral anymore. You are against your constitution." I don't know which exact wording he used, and maybe you become a military target. So this was a direct threat on Austrian security, just because we support Ukraine and we condemn the Russian invasion and we are part of the sanctions, of course. But it's not because we are evil, it's because they attacked Ukraine. But this is, of course, and that was a direct threat, and it was a direct interference in all our information space, in the sense of course, he wants to make people afraid. People are very much afraid. We are post-heroic society. That means for us, for many people, fighting is not good. Pacifism, because of the World War II experiences. In Switzerland, this is a little bit different, because for them it was more like neutrality helps us to avoid all problems because we survived World War II without getting destroyed. So there's a little bit of different history. But when I go to the local actors, then you see a lot of organizations and networks, and they are very well organized, and some of them are quite radical conspiracy theorists. We have a lot of anti-vaxxers there, and they say we need to promote neutrality. But when they say neutrality, they mean anti-NATO, anti-US, and now they are a little bit pro-Trump because of Trump's Ukraine policy, and they are also anti-European Union. So the big boogeyman in these circles is the EU. We have a very, very big anti-EU sentiment in the pro-Russian circles, and they always say we need to be neutral, we need to defend our neutrality, we cannot allow that weapons are going through our countries to help Ukraine. So this is we see it all the time, and I think it's on the beginning of the full-scale invasion, I called it's neutrality against reality. So they don't want to face reality, but now you see it's a pattern, and we have this pattern since decades, that neutrality is exploited to maintain a lot of Russian influence and a lot of pro-Russian views in society.
Okay, and I would like now to turn to Ukraine, which appears to be at the center of many disinformation campaigns in Europe, and the thesis of Ukraine fatigue is often heard in public debates. And to what extent is this the result of real social processes, and to what extent is it the result of targeted information campaigns?
Well, the thing is that we have what we see on social media. We have two things when people speak about Ukraine or about the Russian invasion. We have an attempt of trolls and bots to manipulate our public opinion. And then what we also have is attempts by trolls and bots to create a manipulated opinion, a view of a manipulated opinion. It's not the same. Yeah, the first thing is that they try to influence real people, and the other thing is they try to make everybody believe, look, everybody is already pro-Russian, nobody supports Ukraine anymore, so maybe you follow with the masses, because many people think, okay, if all of them have the same view, maybe I should also have the same view. But it's not real. It's not even sometimes real people. Sometimes it's not even a fake profile with a real actor behind it, but just a bot. On the other hand, we have real people who are also organized. I mentioned these networks before, who are also trolling. But if you compare it to the real numbers, the few that we have, I think the fatigue is not as big as they would like to have it in the Kremlin. But on the other hand, I really need to say that we have no clue about Ukraine. When I remember in 2014, when I returned from Euromaidan, the people here in Austria, for instance, and also many in Germany, they believe that Russian language is banned in Ukraine. They believe such stuff. And there is also a lack of strategic communication. I always explained, look, here is an interview with Klitschko and Dmitry Gordon in 2022, walking on Maidan, and they speak Russian. Look here, I bought something in Ukraine. It's in two languages. Look here, my interviews in a lot of Ukrainian media were published in two languages, in Ukrainian and Russian. Then I have a video with Ukraine Airlines from before the full-scale invasion, where they used English, Ukrainian, and Russian. So I use all these things to explain it to people because they don't know it. And all these Russian narratives, they amplify the voices who create this anti-Ukraine sentiment. And 2014 is crucial. It's all about 2014 because the people think, okay, yeah, but 9 years something happened like this, and this is very efficient to demonize Ukraine, this wrong, distorted reality about 2014. And then we have, of course, a couple of peace narratives that you need to give, and the atomic weapons and all this. But this has nothing to do with the demonization of the Ukrainians. And if you want to speak about the Ukrainians that are here, recently there was a study that they have a quite good image, so people don't have a big problem living with them compared to with displaced people from other countries. So, but of course there are, for instance, far right parties, and there are also left wingers or far left who are trying to shift the view of Ukrainians in the West, in European countries, to demonize them, to call them nationalists and radicals and all this. So this exists, but it's not very efficient because it's absolutely contrary to reality.
And finally, I would like to focus on the response of democratic states and the effectiveness of counter-disinformation policies. Based on the experience of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, what do states lack most in countering disinformation? Speed, coordination, political will, in your opinion?
Everything. I mean, what we have here, this is so ridiculous. I mean, I cannot even, it makes me angry because first of all, governments need strategic communication. They don't have it. They don't do it. Even we have now a pro-Western government, we don't communicate it. We support Ukraine, but we don't communicate it well. I mean, the others, we made it very easy for others to distort the actions of the government regarding, for instance, the support of Ukraine. So there needs to be a strategic attempt to expose bad actors, to expose false narratives, but they don't do it. Some of them are not even aware what are the bad narratives and what are the dangers. And then we need to support civil society and but we need to support the civil society organizations who have the expertise to do something. And we don't have a lot of them, because when you work against disinformation and you have everything, not only foreign interference, but also something about medicine, something about science, something about scams, spam, or something else, of course, it's overwhelming. There are a lot of issues. Not everything is connected to Russia, China, and international actors. Sometimes they amplify such things. So you need people with the expertise, and we don't have it, and we don't care about it. And there is a lack of political will. There is a lack of expertise, and there is a lack of understanding how many layers and how many channels the Russians are using. For instance, cultural propaganda. They refuse to understand it. They say culture is not politics, and we should not punish Russian artists. But then you need to understand the Russian artist is in a conventional sphere, at least, is only then successful when he's pro-regime, because the regime decides who is successful in Russia, and not artistic value usually, because it's not a free country, it's already a dictatorship. So if you have the Russian artist here, you have usually somebody who supports Putin. Yeah, and I don't want to mention names because they like to sue people. And the same we have with all these agents of influence, with all these actors outside of social media. As long as we think that Russian narratives are only a matter of social media, we will not achieve anything. And as long as we also believe that Russian narratives are only from the far right, we will also not achieve anything. Because it's very much coming still from the far left. From the Cold War to now, the same people, only a few changed their mind. And Russia is not even communist anymore. They don't have hammer and sickle on their flag, but the old left is still singing in Moscow's tune. Yeah, unfortunately, it is the case. I can see it since the annexation of Crimea. The same people, the same old stupid people. I mean, sorry to say, yeah. And the government, the societies, we need to react. We need to wake up. We need to build democratic resilience. We also need to understand to defend ourselves, to see ourselves as a democratic Western countries, and not we have a lot of self-hate. We hate the US, we hate our own governments, we hate Brussels, we are not sure if democracy, and we think it's so cool to excuse some dictators of doing something. They call it real politics, yeah, realpolitik, yeah, absolutely stupid. It's a very, very dangerous situation, and we are not doing enough at all. It's naive, it's superficial. I mean, it's super superficial. Yeah, superficial will not say enough. And there are a lot of efforts needed. I try to do something, but unfortunately, we are not many enough in the Western world.
So over the past 2 years, new approaches to countering disinformation have begun to emerge in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And which protection mechanism do you consider to be truly effective?
So everything I saw is just nothing. It's just superficial. It's just, we do a little bit about online, and we check. We have some trolls, and we show a troll network, or media literacy. I mean, when they go to classes, they don't even mention Russia. Yeah, they say, take care what you share. This is absolutely true. I agree. It's a good sentence, but it's not enough at all. We don't even mention the elephant in the room. We don't speak about Russia. I was for a workshop in a small city in Austria with my friend, and we organized a workshop for students. I guess it was the first workshop that mentioned Russia and Chinese influence, because usually they don't do it. The teachers are afraid. It's too political, controversial. Yeah? And I think what is most efficient, we need to build resilience. It's so complex, it's so much that we need to provide information to all people to be immune against disinformation. And if everybody knows that NATO is not responsible for the Russian invasion, that there is no threat towards Russia via NATO, but that Russia is aggressive, when they understand Russian imperialism, when they understand who Mr. Solovyov is, when they understand who Mr. Igor Girkin and Alexander Borodai is, and who actually invaded Donetsk and Luhansk area in 2014, because I knew all of this, because I was there, I was in Ukraine at this time, so I was immune. I cannot guarantee that if I would not have all this information, I would be immune. So we need to find the key narratives that they are using, not daily fakes. The daily fakes are something additional. It's the spice which is added to this dish. But we need to understand the frame narratives and build resilience in schools, but also with adults, media. But the media is part of the problem sometimes. And this is, but you know how it is in Germany, yeah? So, yeah, and Austria.
Okay, thank you very much for this comprehensive and insightful analysis. And unfortunately, we don't have much time for the discussion. And so now we can move to the Q&A session.